I have these very formal bios for everybody, but obviously it's a community, we all know each other. So the next woman who's coming up to speak is Sylvia Hamilton, and I'll read you, the thing I have. But my experience with Sylvia, long before I met her, I had seen all the documentaries she was making about Nova Scotia. She's given a voice and a story and an image to all the rest of Canada of what it is to be Nova Scotian here. She gives these communities life. When I went to King's, it was me and her as the Black people. So just to know that there was somebody that was there that looked like me and that had these histories and was in the place where I was teaching was a real comfort. So Sylvia Hamilton is a multi-award-winning Nova Scotia filmmaker and writer who is known for her documentary films. She is currently the Rogers Chair in Communications at the University of King's College in Halifax, where she teaches. She was born in Beachville, Nova Scotia, a community founded by the Black refugees from the War of 1812. And she's been recognized with honorary degrees from St. Mary's, Dalhousie, and Acadia. What's up with the Mount? And awards include a Gemini, the CBC Television Pioneer Award, Nova Scotia's coveted Portia White Prize for Excellence in the Arts, and the National Expression Award Trailblazer Award. So please, everybody, big hand, big welcome to Sylvia Hamilton.
Thank you very much, Elle, and thank you, and good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. First, I will acknowledge the ancestral spirits of the first people of this land, the first people, the Mi'kmaq, and we are here by their grace. I thank Historica Canada for presenting this event, and a special thanks to Lally for his kindness, his energy, and his super organizing skills. I think about where we all began, the continent of Africa, and the earliest of our ancestors, a female. So a poem in her honor, Own My Own, for Lucy, mother of us all. Dinknesh, the wonderful, the fabulous, the precious. That's your name. They named you Lucy after the Beatles' Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, playing on the cassette when they celebrated finding you. Small, 3.5 feet, maybe 60 pounds, protruding belly. You had walked upright 3.2 million years ago in Afar, Ethiopia. What happened when you walked by that riverbank where they found you? You, the most complete, 40% of your bones intact. You surely surprised them. You walked upright, caused them to give you a new title of your own, Australopithecus afarensis. How could you know I would be thinking about you? I am the grateful daughter of Marie Nita Waldron and Gerald Mack Hamilton, the granddaughter of Ida Gross and Gilbert Hamilton, of Hattie Kellum and William Waldron, the great-granddaughter of Charlotte and Charles Gross. Rosemary Brown, educator, feminist, elected member of the British Columbia legislature, she said, "Until all of us have made it, none of us have made it." Determined, generous, smart, hardworking, Rosemary Brown knew the struggle against injustice of all kinds and the significant struggle for women's equality were not solitary ventures. They required and still require diligent collective action. In 1972, she became the first Black woman in Canadian history to be elected to a Canadian parliamentary body, in her case, the British Columbia legislature. She ran for the leadership of the federal NDP in 1975, International Women's Year. I went to the big rally for her in Halifax. When she lost the race, it was on the fourth ballot to Ed Broadbent. But she laid down a marker, a beacon, a challenge to us all. Viola Desmond had a foremother who also went to court. Sometimes it takes the action of an individual to show us what is possible. And I think of Mary Postel, a free Black woman, a Black loyalist woman, who stands as an example of resistance to enslavement. She used the courts in Shelburne, Nova Scotia, not once, but twice. She had been tricked when she came here in 1786. She had been tricked out of her freedom papers. So she was in court challenging the claim that white loyalist Jessie Gray was making on her and her children, Flora and Nell. So imagine 1786 and 1791, a Black woman taking a white loyalist to court to prevent him from selling her and her children. Gray, with the help from his brother, presented falsified documents, false witnesses to the court, and Mary lost her case. She was sold for a bushel of potatoes. The significance of this case: Mary Postel's bravery encouraged others to file court cases in Shelburne. As British subjects, they asserted their right to avail themselves of the court's protection, whether or not the court ruled in their favor. Mary Postel had a vision for herself and her children. She fought for the right to be treated as human, not as property, not as chattel. She stood up. She defied those who sought to restrict and own her. Portia White had a vision for herself, and she said, and I quote, "Nobody ever told me to sing. I was born singing, and I think that if nobody had ever talked to me, I wouldn't be able to communicate in any other way but by singing. I had this dream. I was always bowing in my dreams and singing before people and parading across the stage as a very little girl," close quote. She was born in 1911. Her life spanned 2 world wars, the Great Depression, the Civil Rights Movement. She died in February 1968, just 2 months before Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Her accomplishments had no match, regardless of race, during her early career. There was no one, and I mean no one, like her. She was an original. Portia White was the first Canadian to have a debut at New York's famed Town Hall, March 13th, 1944. She was called Canada's singing sensation, a name given to no other artist. She blazed a trail for me and other artists. African descendant women, Black women in Canada, have shaped their identities with forge and anvil, the forge and anvil of struggle, of resistance, and of love. I am here because they were. I thank them. I wish you peace. Thank you.